watching Numbskull News, and today I'm going to be reacting to another channel, this time the Big Mountain Podcast. I watched an episode of them before, but they did a series of videos with TJ Pittenger from College Football Addiction. They went over various topics of things. So I wanted to see them on their own. I'll let you know what I think of their opinions. This video is UNC plans to leave the ACC, and it's about that whole, what is it called, the Blue Matter or whatever. They're the money they've put into exploring leaving the ACC. So, we'll hear their opinions. I'll dive into what I think. I'm not gonna react to the entire 19-minute video. And hopefully this is a show that both me and you could watch in the future and get some entertainment out of. So let's see what they got.
College football realignment is always in the news, so we're back on the Big Mountain to keep you updated.
Welcome back to the Big Mountain. I am JY. This is my good friend Steve. This is episode 2 of 2. Yesterday, we talked about UNC Board of Trustees and the UNC system and how they're at odds right now in terms of who's in charge of what. As I keep saying, stay in your lane, or we're redefining your lane, as you may say. Talked about that yesterday. If you didn't see that, make sure you go back and check that one out. But now we have some recent reporting here dropped on Tuesday night from The Athletic. And this recent reporting, Steve, confirms what we have been saying here on the Big Mountain recently. UNC is planning for their future. 2 weeks ago, dropped an episode about what may be occurring at UNC. And my goodness, ever since that episode dropped, week after week here, we're getting new nuggets, new kind of onions being peeled back. And we have to talk about this. Carolina has been planning behind closed doors for conference realignment since late 2022. And why wouldn't they? They are arguably the most valuable brand in the ACC. As we know, FSU decided to go.
Well, again, that's something that I've been fighting for a long time. That argument right there, the most valuable brand in the ACC. Based on what? What is ACC's value? Because their football value is very minute. It's not based on football. So whatever their value is, it isn't the value of what realignment has been about for the last several years, which is about football. I've been accused, you're just seeing it through football eyes. Well, shit. I'm seeing it how the Big Ten and the SEC are seeing it. All right? Look, all the Hateful Eight, those original 8 leftover schools of the Big 12, all of them called the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to find a landing spot once Texas and Oklahoma announced they were going to leave. They couldn't find one. Why is that? Why is that? I can make a case that Oklahoma State has a more valuable football brand than UNC. I can make that case. I can make that case for West Virginia. A more valuable football brand than UNC. Is UNC a more valuable brand than those? Yeah, but it's not based off of football. What is it based off of? Basketball. Academics. I'm here to tell you right now, and if you don't believe me, you're not paying attention. You don't know what you're talking about. Realignment has nothing to do with academics. Get that out of your freaking head. So that high value that UNC has as far as an academic brand is shit. Doesn't matter in realignment. It's not part of the equation. So what is part of the equation? Basketball. Has any realignment been done that has exclusively been about basketball? I'm talking Big 12 expansion, Big 10 expansion, or SEC expansion. No, it hasn't. Now, I'll argue with the Big 12. It's a part of the formula, basketball. But for the Big 10 and the SEC, it's just It's just an extra. It's an aside. It's the green beans of the roast that they're wanting, where the roast is the football. The green beans are the basketball. There's no proof that they're the most valuable brand in realignment. This is not basketball realignment. Or else we'd be talking nothing but the Big East.
Basically nuclear on what they're doing with the ACC in late 2023. We know Clemson then followed in FSU's footsteps, beginning their own litigation in South Carolina. But their path clearly wasn't nearly as nuclear, as salacious as we have been saying here in terms of what the FSU litigation has done. UNC, on the other hand, Steve, they've been kind of quiet. They have been quiet on the litigation front. Kind of a little unknown as to where they headed. We know you have said for many, many months they're the linchpin in the ACC here because of that brand value, as I said before. But again, just because there isn't litigation.
How much money does UNC make for the ACC conference? As much as Florida State? As much as Clemson? I would say not. As much as Miami? I would say not. Because football makes you the most money. I'm not saying UNC is worthless. It is a great brand. It's a recognizable brand. But so is Kansas. No one talks about Duke. I would say they're right there with UNC as far as brand value, because it's based off of basketball and based off of education, academics. Now, you may give UNC a little more latitude because it's a larger public university than Duke, which is a small private university. Okay.
Article that dropped on Tuesday evening by Brendan Marks and Matt Baker with The Atlantic gave us a great look behind the curtain here as to what has been going on with UNC for quite a while, Steve. They come out swinging in this article right away. They say over the past 2 years, UNC has spent over $600,000 in legal bills for a project that has been called the Carolina Blue Matter. I always think matter, when I say that Carolina Blue, like it's a blob, but it's not a blob. It's a matter, like a legal matter.
Yes. Not like brain matter.
Yeah, I think it's a matter. Every time I say Carolina Blue Matter, I think of brain matter. I don't know why. Anyway, let's stay on focus here. Sources confirmed that the Carolina Blue Matter was indeed the UNC's behind-the-scenes look at realignment, further saying that this was the university doing its due diligence. I want to start here, Steve, with a really important fact. A fact that you have been saying for a while, and you also have been saying it regarding FSU. This states plainly that UNC has a landing spot, according to a former trustee, that you believe FSU does have, if not one, maybe two landing spots outside of the ACC. And here we're seeing that UNC clearly has at least one, if not two, landing spots outside of the ACC. Anything you want to add there?
Well, when the UNC, this quote isn't just based on like the random opinion of a guy. This is someone who they just spent, $500,000 paying legal fees to look at what their options are.
Right.
Backroom negotiations. And part of that was to find out, do we have a landing spot? Is there interest? What is our value? And the answer is yes. They have a lot of interest from the two conferences that are the most interested in, acquiring these top properties.
Right. So this quote was from a former trustee, Duckett, I believe was his name, and it was in an email, and it said, quote, "We have a landing spot if things blow up." And again, that's similar to what you've been saying about FS.
Okay, so they're basing this off of a former trustee, not a current trustee, a former trustee. Says, we have a landing spot if things blow up. Isn't that kind of vague? A landing spot. Could it be the SEC? I mean, according to everybody else, probably. To me, no. How about the Big Ten? I'm a big no on the Big Ten as well. I'm going against the grain here. Most people think it's one of the big two conferences or both of the big two conferences that are very interested in UNC. I'm saying there are people within those conferences that are interested for old school reasons, academics, the brand value UNC does have, which is basketball and all that. But when it comes to what is most important and valuable to your media partners, it's about football. And I think in today's climate, in this economic climate, where those schools are making so much damn money in the Big Ten and the SEC, UNC doesn't add up. All right. So when you talk about landing spot, which, like I said, that's vague, he could also mean the Big 12. Why would they go to the Big 12? I'm not saying they want to go to the Big 12. But if things blow up, I would argue, yes, UNC does have a landing spot, and it's called the Big 12. To me, it's a more logical landing spot for UNC. It's, as far as not academic logic, but as far as a basketball school, that's a great fit for UNC. They would have great competition to play every week in basketball. As far as the money, it's really not too big a difference from where they're at. It's not a downgrade. Like some ACC people seem to think that, the ACC makes all this more money. Well, they don't. I think right now the gap is about roughly about $5 million a year, 5, 6, somewhere in there, where the ACC makes about 5, 6 more. But as time goes on, you look at projections, the ACC network is going to start bringing in less and less money as more and more cord cutters happen. And I've done a video showing how that is being exacerbated over time, how that is snowballing. You're losing more and more subscribers to traditional linear TV. And that's where you get your carriage fees. And you're gaining some subscribers to the YouTube TV model, which still applies carriage fees, but they're not very high. And let's not mention that YouTube TV and Paramount, which, they have the rights to the NCAA tournament, that's going to be a problem because YouTube TV, which YouTube is owned by Google, which has a hell of a lot more money than Disney or ESPN. And they don't want to pay an exacerbated amount. There's a problem even in that realm, in that area. But yeah, this is a very vague thing because it's kind of where everyone's head is when they say, we have a landing spot. Everyone automatically goes to Big Ten or SEC. I would say they also have a landing spot with the Big 12 if things blow up. Because if they can't get into the Big 2, where do you think they're going to go? Well, they'll just stay in the ACC. For what? For what? Less money? I don't think they will. And not to mention, like they said before about their first video, that there's a real problem in between the system presidents or your board of governors and your board of trustees. So UNC itself doesn't have a say of where they can go as far as realignment. They have to adhere to the board of governors, who controls the entire North Carolina educational system. So what everyone's thinking is because that board of governors is largely controlled by NC State people. So UNC just can't fly off to somewhere without taking NC State with them. And the Big 12 would take both. You can't convince me the Big 10 and the SEC will. That's bullshit. UNC doesn't have the stroke of a Notre Dame, where Notre Dame can probably, grab Stanford and go to the Big 10 anytime they want. Because Notre Dame's valuable enough to cover Stanford. UNC isn't that valuable. That's what people need to get out of their freaking head.
And this was not a quote that he released for publicity reasons.
Correct.
This was internal conversations between fiduciaries of the university.
Good point. Another very interesting part of this article that I found was another written statement here from Duckett in which he says, quote, "Let FSU and Clemson pay the attorney fees and we'll see what happens. Quote, we will learn via their expense." I know that was one you sent to me, Steve, as well. At this point, basically, he's saying hey, they already, the first one jumped in full bore, nuclear optioned it.
Yep.
Clemson's also doing it maybe slightly differently in a different state. We now have 3 states involved. What's the purpose of doing this at our expense? We'll just watch what they're doing.
To me, that's the money shot of the entire article. An awesome article.
Okay, people need to stop ripping off Greg Flugar. The money shot of the article. Come on. That's practically a copyright from Greg Flugar.
Now we can peek into those internal deliberations. They spent some money. They looked at their options. They have options.
Yep.
But like you said, sly as a fox,
Yep.
They're going to sit back. They're going to bide their time. Let the other 2 bust their way out the door and spend the money and the goodwill to do it. When they want the same thing, they could just be quiet about it and not spend.
Well, I agree with some of that, but we're also having to assume that UNC can just launch a lawsuit without the approval of the Board of Governors. No one knows that. I seem to kind of doubt it since they're controlling UNC's fate. So that plays a role as well. And as a matter of fact, at the same time that UNC was spending this money, the Board of Governors was, consolidating power in North Carolina to control what happens with UNC. So I'm sure that played a big role in whether or not they file a lawsuit. So I don't know how many choices UNC actually has when they have to ask the Board of Governors for permission to wipe their own ass right now. That's a problem.
We don't want to be known that way. We don't want to publicly, have that stain on us. That was interaction as well. And a lot of times that gets lost. We're so interested in the actual litigation and who said what, and we hate them and they hate us. But the goodwill is a very important piece to this.
I think it's a very overblown piece of this, because they themselves have did a whole show about the Board of Governors. So is it them wanting FSU and Clemson to take all the hits and spend all the money? I'm not saying it's partial. I'm not saying it's not partially true, but it may not even be the biggest reason why. The biggest reason why could be that they have to go through the Board of Governors to get anything done. And who leaked the emails? Someone had to leak them. And why did they leak them? Why did the Athletic get their hands on this? How did they get their hands on this? They didn't hack a UNC mainframe to get this stuff. It was leaked to them. It was given to them by a source. So what is the reason? What's the reason for it? What's the reason for the leak? It's because people within UNC have no control over their future. This is an act of desperation. They're trying to put it out there like, hey, we spent money. We know there are problems. We have this theoretical landing spot, whatever that means, wherever that is. We have all this, but damn, we can't do anything. That's what it sounds like to me. They want it out that they are looking, and this is the only thing they can do is leak this information a little bit to put a little more doubt within ACC. Maybe even to aid Florida State and Clemson in their lawsuits. Like, we're going to put this out publicly so that they can use it in court. That, hey, we've been... The center of the ACC universe is also looking to leave the ACC.
The last big nugget that I want to point out is another interaction between Duckett again and the current trustee chair Pryor. We talked about him in our last episode yesterday. So this was a conversation about protecting UNC financially and with regard to their reputation or their goodwill. Chairman Pryor stated that, quote, "I firmly believe that protecting UNC financially requires us to explore every available avenue to depart a conference that is in financial decline and is primarily serving its bottom tier schools. While Carolina once led the ACC, that time is long gone. The current commissioner is not serving our best interests."
Pause.
Unquote.
Yeah, the financial decline part of that. And that's from a current trustee, people. Because I am convinced the North Carolina Board of Governors, they don't know all this ACC stuff. They're not 100% on board or educated, if you will, in realignment. All right, that's how I see it. The trustees are there on the ground. This is what they do. And so now you have a current guy that talks about we got to look after and explore all options because of the financials. There is revenue sharing that's coming. All right, both the Big Ten, SEC, and the Big 12 and the ACC are all working together to figure out the revenue sharing, the model, to implement it, the policing of it. The financial aspect is now extraordinarily important to every program, every athletic department in all of Division I, but especially in the Power Four. That's another damning statement thrown out there by UNC. And it was done purposeful because that board of trustee member or the leader of the trustees, they have no power. They have no power of where UNC can go or what it can do in terms of realignment. They have to go hat in hand and ask the Board of Governors for permission to do certain things. And they're not going to be just able to willy-nilly do whatever they want without NC State involvement.
They're in financial decline. They're serving the bottom schools. They don't care about us. We used to be the big boy.
Yep.
Now, that time's gone. Times they are a-changing, and this commissioner doesn't care about our interests.
Now, think about what was just said there, and this was said by the Board of Trustees as well, that in the ACC, UNC used to be a much bigger deal. It just was. But this is a different era now. And I think there's a lot of truth there. I think UNC still, of course, has a big brand, has value, but it's not in terms of what is important anymore. If this was still the environment of 20, 30 years ago, I can easily see UNC going to the Big Ten or the SEC because they would want to get into the state of Carolina. Carolina is one of the hot growth states in the union. They're one of the more populated. I think they got like 9 million people. So they're like they're in the top 10 most populated states. You know, maybe 8th, 9th, somewhere in there. Far behind New York, far behind California, far behind Florida, and far behind Texas. But, you know, they're in the top 10 for what it's worth. I think that would mean something to the Big Ten and the SEC back in the day, combined with the Jordan brand. However, you know, and of course academically, especially for the Big Ten. But like I said, however, the economics have changed, and everything's based way more on football than it ever has been. And now that you have all the cord cutting, and now the traditional linear TV is now in massive decline. The carriage fees for getting into a new state it's not the same value that it once was. It's losing. That value is also a decreasing asset. It's no longer a value for UNC to use to pound their own chest anymore. People still want to talk about it, but they're not really looking at the business aspect of entertainment, which is, you know, the linear cable satellite stuff is going away. It's and I'm not saying it'll ever completely go away. It may not, but, or at least not in the next several decades, it may still be a thing, but it's going to be like, it's going to be like MySpace, you know, or the DVD or the CD. It's going to be like radio. That's the main value for UNC in realignment, and that is not something of value anymore. Not in the modern era, it's not. Let me address the other part, which is the ACC is now more interested in serving the smaller brands, the smaller schools. The ACC is supposed to serve everybody in the conference. Everybody in the conference. And that's what they should do. That's what they say, okay, Well, short-term wise, the money that's supposed to be going to SMU, that's supposed to be going to Cal and Stanford, we can put that in the pool and use it for like performance bonuses and all this kind of stuff. But everyone, it's not going to take away from everyone's baseline tier 1 money. It's not going to take away from your CFP money. It's not going to take away from all the equal cuts of the ACC network that everyone gets. Okay, but when's enough for the top schools? When's enough? Enough. May not be. To criticize the ACC for looking out for Boston College or for looking out for Wake Forest, that's part of their job. They're part of the damn conference. That's why I love the Big 12, man. Everyone gets equal shares of everything. That's the way it should be, man. Just equal across the board. No one's bitching. And there's no some gigantic brand in the Big 12 that deserves more money.
Remember yesterday we talked in terms of the UNC system president, again reprimanding the trustees here, specifically the president of the trustee, or the chair of the trustee, I should say, and limiting their control. For the time being, they say. We'll see if it's given back.
Basically, the Board of Governors told the trustee, hey, shut up. You're not in control of anything. Shut your mouth. That's kind of damning. That kind of leads me to what I'm saying is that the trustees have no power. All they can do is leak this stuff, try to get it out there, do what they can behind the scenes and through the media to help out Florida State and Clemson, because that's the only thing they can do. They're not allowed to make these decisions. So in closing, what do I think about the Big Mountain podcast? Not bad. They're not bad. I think that's a decent choice, man. They're kind of straight-laced. They're not like me. They're trying to present themselves a little more professional than I do. They claim to have some sources. Don't know anything about that. Don't know who their sources are. Have no idea what they have or have not ever been right on as far as those sources are concerned. So I don't really take that all that seriously. Until, you watch more and then you see what sources may want to whatever and see if they get anything right. Don't know. It's a lot of regurgitation from what a lot of the national media always say. And this is just one video though, one topic. But overall, it's a passing grade. And I'll put a link to the description of the whole damn thing so you can check it out and view them for yourself and see if you like them or not. To me, I get more value out of watching people that are, how would you say it? Independent. These guys appear to be independent, small time. They got a couple thousand more subscribers than I do, so they're still, a small deal and independent, and that's important. I like independent media, so that's sports media included. So you can be big time being independent. It just takes a while, just maybe a long while. I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was a pretty good show. Do I agree with everything? No, but like I said, they kind of go along with a lot of the main narratives of UNC. There may be some other things that I agree more with them on. That's just me. Because in one of the big guy there, I think he's the Big Ten guy, which is fitting. The big guy's the Big Ten guy. In the video with TJ Pittenger, he had talked about how UNC, the Big Ten are kind of, getting cold on them. Like, I don't know, kind of getting cold on them. And he didn't really go there with this. I don't know why. Like, what changed in a matter of a span of a few days? So that has me questioning some things. Because he said as far as his Big Ten sources, that the waters are getting a little cold in the Big Ten for UNC. Which, I had no problem. I never thought they were warm in the first place, at least not in this current era. And maybe for some other reasons they would be more sought after, but in terms of realignment, not really. I'm going to give them more chances. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Hopefully the comedy gets a little better, but that's a small critique. But that's it. Not too shabby. Okay, not everybody has to be an a-hole like me. Some people can be a little more straight-laced and get it done. So, like I said, I'll put the link in the description, and y'all check them out. See if you like them. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.